is all the guys who were like the blind AEW defenders. They want to thump their chest and be like, "How dare you complain that there's no story just because one of the people you had never heard of before we told you it was a dream match." Like, it doesn't make sense. Welcome to the Talkin Bout podcast. I'm your host, TW. I know you have so many choices for your entertainment. So whoever you are and wherever you may be, thank you for spending a few minutes of your day here with me. So, we're gonna dive right into it. Listen, in wrestling, there's always some stupid fake controversy going on. Always something, we can never just be happy. Right? We can never just enjoy each other's company. There's always some nonsense going on, right? And the latest, and I don't know if greatest is the right word, but certainly the latest fake wrestling controversy has to do with the concept of a dream match. What is a dream match, right? Like what exactly is a dream match? Um First of all, first things first, before we get into any of that at all, give it up for Kenny Omega and Vikingo. Give it up for them boys. Give it up for them boys. Listen, they tore it down. They tore that match down. Kenny Omega and Vikingo smoked it. So whatever you're doing right now, just give it up for them boys because they killed that. That was phenomenal. That match was fun to watch. It was exciting from the beginning to the end. That's by far the best Kenny Omega match I have ever seen. And listen, you're talking to somebody who watches Impact Wrestling. And Kenny Omega had the Impact World title for like, I think 10 months or a year or something crazy like that. He was beating everybody in Impact. And at no point did I see this whole like this best bout machine, right? They were calling this guy all the hype, Don Callis and his Kenny by God Omega and like all of that. I never saw it. I never saw it. I'm not saying he was like a bad wrestler or anything, but it's just there was this concerted effort to present this guy as the greatest wrestler in the world, and I just didn't see it, right? So, for me, it was like, yeah, really? But this match that Kenny Omega and Vikingo had on Dynamite this week was it was through the roof. That match was the first thing I've seen that truly kind of delivered on this hype of Kenny Omega and just like all of this these things that are supposed to be so special about Kenny Omega. This is the first time I have actually seen it. So that match was phenomenal. I'm sure Dave Meltzer will give it 17 stars and all of that, but both of those dudes, Kenny Omega, Vikingo, deserve a round of applause because that match was absolutely phenomenal. Like that's one of the best matches I've ever seen. It was so much fun. It was so much fun to watch, right? But of course, again, in wrestling, we can't just have nice things, right? We can't just have a great match and look back at that great match and enjoy it and say, wasn't that fun? No. There always got to be some bullshit. Okay, it's always got to be some controversy. And this one is about the use of the term dream match in the promotion of this match. Now, when this match was announced, people pushed back because Tony Khan labeled this as a dream match. And rightfully, people said, how could you call this a dream match when I've never heard of one of the people in this match, right? And that is a fair criticism. That is a valid and fair criticism. Like, yes, Kenny Omega is great, and we know now, yes, Vikingo is great, right? I think it's El Hijo del Vikingo, but we'll just call him Vikingo for short, right? So yes, both of these guys are great, but you gotta respect the fact that nobody has heard that. A lot of people have not heard of Vikingo because we just haven't seen him. We have not seen this guy, right? And so people, collectively expressed that how could the idea of how could how could this be a dream match if I'm not invested in the characters, right? But the way that ended up coming out is there's no story, right? Like everything on social media, it gets boiled down to a quote, right? It gets boiled down to a quote, to a couple of words that we can take and we can run with. And in this case, it was, there's no story, right? So for those who don't know, the backstory here is that Kenny Omega, when he was doing his belt collector gimmick, like I think it was like into 20 into 21. It was certainly during like, you know, the quarantine when there was like no fans in the stands and, you know, all of this stuff. This turned out to be a really good, fun idea, right? Like Kenny Omega, this, you know, big famous wrestling star, would be the champion of all these promotions, and it would kind of unify, you know, all of these different promotions, working with AEW as a rising company, right? And it kind of created this feeling of like, hey, you know what? WWE is the biggest, richest wrestling company. They got the most resources, and while we can't have fans, they're over there making shows, you know, renting out a baseball field and building a dome full of TV screens. And, you know, that's stuff that no other wrestling company would be able to match. So somebody had the great idea, right, that all these companies would just start working together, right? And one of the ways that this manifested was this whole belt collector gimmick that Kenny Omega was doing, where he won the AAA world title and he won the Impact world title and the AEW world title. And this just this you know, great undefeated streak that he was going on, and all these companies were behind it, and it was all really cool, right? But eventually a time came when he had to drop those titles, okay? And in my opinion, he should have dropped all those titles to someone in the company that he, you know, that maybe not the same person he beat for, but like, if you're going to go to AAA and beat everybody in AAA, and you're going to be AAA's world champion, but you're rarely there, but you're, you know, parading their belt around, you need to come back to AAA and drop that title to somebody in AAA, right? Like, to me, that makes sense. But in the case of this, he being Kenny Omega, he had an injury, so he had to, you know, forfeit the title. Now, Vikingo, he was the up and comer, and he's the person that likely would have been in the position to take that title from Kenny Omega, but because of the injury and Kenny Omega having to forfeit that match never got to happen. So, if you were a fan of AAA, you have been anticipating this match for 2 years. 2 years. Now, the key word here is if. If you were a fan of AAA, you've been anticipating this match for 2 years. If you're not a fan of AAA, you likely had no idea who Vikingo is. No idea who Vikingo is. You can't have a dream match between two people if you've never heard of one of the people. Again, this is perfectly logical, but social media is an illogical place. And one of the things that makes it even worse, right, is the people who claim to be kind of centrist, like they don't really have, you know, a dog in the fight, or, you know, they're really unbiased, just kind of, you know, watching the game and offering unbiased commentary. The truth is, they're just as biased as everybody else. The only difference is they just don't crave the confrontation like people who are open about their biases, okay? But listen, to AEW's credit, they took this match and made it part of a bigger angle, right? Because there's something going on right now with Kenny Omega. He's starting to, you know, separate himself from the trios thing. I think he's eventually going to end up separating himself from Don Callis and just going back to being, like, you know, the babyface, the headliner. And actually, it kind of makes me wonder if they'll end up doing Kenny Omega versus MJF, because I would love to see that. Not necessarily from a matchup of in-ring style standpoint, but it's like, you know, MJF is a golden boy on one side, Kenny Omega is your golden boy on the other side. It's like, if you're Tony Khan, who do you pick? Who do you pick? Oh my God, the politicking and the stories that will come out backstage if they ever decide to put that match on the books. As a matter of fact, they probably haven't put that match on the books for that specific reason, right? Because these are probably two guys that neither one of them wants to take a fall. I mean, who knows? I don't know. But I know I would be certainly interested if they decide to do that match. Like, that's an ace in the pocket that, you know, I would love to see that. AEW doesn't have a whole lot of matches where I would say like, yo, that's a match I'm really looking forward to. That would be one of them. So Omega MJF, that's one I would be looking forward to. But instead of talking about this great, phenomenal match that Kenny Omega and Vikingo put on and the possibilities, like I just did, of Omega and MJF or Omega and whatever else might be coming with Kenny Omega going back on his own, or the fact that they're clearly teasing a reunion between Omega and Hangman Page, right? Instead of talking about all that, we spend today, the day after the show, getting like a victory lap of "I told you so's" from the AEW defenders, right? Because there's no story became the mocking. It became like the rallying cry, right? Of, oh, there's no story. Why don't you just watch the show? There's no story. I thought there was no story, right? Like that's the thing. Is all the guys who were like the blind AEW defenders, they want to thump their chest and be like, how dare you complain that there's no story just because one of the people you had never heard of before, we told you it was a dream match. Like, it doesn't make sense. Again, listen, you can't have an argument with me or with anybody else if you're not willing to concede that there's a point to be made on each side of the conversation. Now, again, social media is not a place for logic, okay? Social media is not a place where logic gets over, right? Like, social media is a place where the biggest, worst, and funniest and loudest jokes get over, right? You shout people down, you ratio them, right? Like all of this dumb stuff. That's what rules the day on social media. So I get it. Social media is not really a place to come in and be like, oh, well, you know what? If we're thinking about this honestly, there is some points over here, there's some points over there, and everybody really does have a good point here, right? But I still like to make sense with my conversations. Call me crazy. Call me crazy. I know. This is the wrong arena to be out here trying to make sense, but I still like to make sense, right? So there's no story thing, like, you know, the AEW defenders felt like this was a big victory for them. So congratulations to them on once again distracting from a great positive for AEW and turning it into some nonsense, right? It seems like AEW can't have like good positive stuff happen without having some ridiculous nonsense overshadow it. You know, like AEW has this great pay-per-view and we're spending the next day talking about MJF throwing a drink in a kid's face. You know, like, you know, the all-out press conference, like all of this stuff, man. And by the way, CM Punk resurfaced. CM Punk resurfaced again, and apparently he put out some a message he just could not resist writing on his Instagram story, like a paragraph, a vertical paragraph going down his Instagram story, just, you know, calling Jericho a liar, calling Dave Meltzer a liar, revealing what the plans were for his match with Jon Moxley, which, by the way, I gotta say, I'm on Punk's side with this one. Listen, I was this close to buying the pay-per-view when they were going to do Punk versus Moxley. I thought they had a really good thing they were building up to. Like, you knew CM Punk was their golden boy, but you knew Jon Moxley was there putting in the work, and it felt like a great story of like two stories meeting, right? Like, you know, and they could, what are they going to do, right? But instead, according to CM Punk, Jon Moxley came up with this idea of, let's do it like Rocky 3, where you know, Rocky's getting soft, so he gets smashed by Clubber Lang, and then he goes back to his roots, and Apollo takes him to the hood to train, and then Rocky comes back and defeats Clubber Lang, right? And so that's why you saw that story play out over like the course of a week that I thought was so stupid, where CM Punk got squashed by Jon Moxley, and he comes out the next week and gets a pep talk from who's this guy? Ace Steel. By the way, His name will always remind me of Booker T laughing at the telling of this story and just going, hey, dog, who is Ace Steel? Like, that's the funniest thing I will always remember about Ace Steel is the fact that when we were telling the story of what happened at All Out, Booker T had to stop the story and say, hey man, who is Ace Steel? Is he a worker? Like, that was that is and will always be my favorite Ace Steel mention slash memory. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was stupid. It was stupid, right? Like, you had a match people wanted to see, and I can't be the only one who feels that way. You know what I mean? And clearly, CM Punk felt that way. You had a match people wanted to see, right? But apparently, Moxley didn't want to do the job for Punk if Punk didn't do the job for him first. Which is, I mean, wow. Have we learned nothing from Brett and Sean? Right? Like, we've all seen the Montreal Screwjob documentaries and retellings 100,000,000 times. Have we learned nothing from Hollywood Hogan and his "it doesn't work for me, brother"? Allegedly, I wasn't there. These are just stories that we've heard many times of the way Hollywood Hogan would approach creative decisions, right? And by the way, the most recent AEW, I'm sorry, not AEW, A&E documentary about the NWO retold the story, and it told us what I felt was the truth all along, right? Like, we've heard this idea of you had this story of Sting versus the NWO, then all of a sudden he shows up for Starrcade, and now we got to do this screw finish. We knew all along Hogan was behind it. But Bischoff protected him for years and years and years and never threw him under the bus when telling the story. But for some reason now in 2023, Bischoff has decided to come out and tell the truth that Hogan flexed his creative control clause to screw up the Starrcade finish. Thanks a lot, Hulk. All right, back to where we are here. Okay, so this whole thing with AEW, right? Like, the idea that, again, you got this guy, Vikingo, who is clearly a great wrestler, clearly a super exciting wrestler. And a lot of the people who were going to be watching that show just had no prior experience, no knowledge of him, right? So there was no way they could know who this guy is, right? So they pushed back on the idea of you calling this a dream match, right? Like, again, perfectly logical. But this is reminiscent of like a consistent problem with watching AEW. It's like there's all these prerequisites for being a fan of AEW, right? Like, it's like inside jokes, right? Like, so if you weren't a fan of ROH, or if you weren't a fan of New Japan, you don't know the history and the backstory behind some of these characters or some of these situations, some of these relationships, but they tease them on the show as if you're just supposed to know them, as if you're just supposed to just catch up and be up to speed with them. And they don't do very much, if anything, to speak to the new fan, the new eyeballs who are seeing and hearing this for the first time. I know this because I'm that person, right? I'm a huge wrestling fan. I watch anything you call wrestling, right? Like, I'll at least give it a shot. So I watch AEW, weekly, but there's just so many things that go on with AEW where it feels like you don't want me to know. Because if you have a great wrestler, two great wrestlers, a great match, a great story, some great history, something, you should go out of your way to remind the people who saw it how great it was, and to let the people know who haven't seen it how great it is. Am I crazy? That makes sense, right? That makes sense. If you got a great story, you got to bring people in instead of having it be like this fake cool kids club, right? Where if you didn't watch all the niche stuff, all the niche stuff, then you're just not included in the conversation. Like, to me, all you're doing is continuing to alienate people who want to like your product. But all of that aside, I think AEW is trying to settle back in to things that their base loves, which is Kenny Omega and the Elite as the feature points of the show. And I'm looking forward to see what's next with AEW. I mean, I may have no idea who's in the ring half the time, but I'm gonna show up and watch. If you like what we're doing here, just make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel. Make sure to hit the notification bell so you get notified each and every time I drop some brand new fire content on this page. All right. So if you haven't noticed, Cody Rhodes has become the center of this Bloodline WrestleMania story. Yes. Cody Rhodes is the latest guest star in the Bloodline, or is Cody the latest guest star in the Bloodline story? Or are we watching Cody stories? Now, a couple of Fridays ago, we got Cody in the ring with Roman for a face-to-face promo, and it looked even, right? You had Cody, you had Roman, these two guys in the ring, face-to-face, and it was not like Roman overshadowing Cody. It didn't look like the 7-time Mania main eventer and the guy who's never been in the main event of WrestleMania. It looked like two guys who were top guys. Then we saw the following week, we saw Cody stepping in to save Sammy from the beatdown at the end of Raw after Jey Uso turned his back on him. Then on Friday, he came out and interrupted the Usos promo, and he basically told them, he hit him with the Will Smith, "Keep my name out your bleeping mouth," right? And then, he got into a fight with them, and then Sammy got involved. And then the Monday after that, Cody had a match with LA Knight. After his match with LA Knight, Cody got the mic and cut a promo by himself. And by the way, that was a hell of a promo. One line in that promo that he said that really hit. He said, I wear this suit. He said, I don't wear this suit because I think I'm somebody. I wear this suit because I want to be somebody. And when he said that, he made it aspirational. He made his journey to the top aspirational, right? And that's something where, again, your regular person can relate to having aspirations, right? Like, a lot of the criticism of Cody has been this idea that he's just been gifted this spot. But in his promos, he's been fighting back on a lot of the criticism, which I think is just a great thing that I love to see in all forms of art, right? In all forms of art, you see the greats answering their critics, right? Like, you see them. I remember, for a long time, right, the big criticism of John Cena was, this guy can't wrestle, right? Like, John Cena can't wrestle. He's got the 5 moves to do him or whatever. Let's fast forward to like 2015, once John Cena knows that he's starting to wind down and he's going to be on his way out. What did he do? He switched up all the matches he was having to just be putting on wrestling bangers. He got the US title, and he started doing the US title open challenge, and he used that as a vehicle to have matches with Kevin Owens and AJ Styles and Seth Rollins and Sami Zayn. And man, whoa! I mean, this dude was just out there, just, if nothing else, erasing the idea that he can't go out there and perform the style that people loved with the people that fans, are the ones who think are so great. He was out there going toe to toe, move for move with all those guys in the ring. So I believe the greats always answer their critics, and you saw Cody doing that here with, the way he put together his promo, right? Now, this past week, the promo between Roman and Cody, this was I just thought the kicker, right? So again, we get another face-to-face in the ring with Roman and Cody. Cody's in his suit. Roman was out there, just cutting a promo. And again, like I say, the greats answer their critics, right? And a criticism I've had of Roman Reigns, maybe not as harshly as, a lot of people, but I think that a glaring flaw in Roman's game has been promos. That's not to say that he stumbles over himself or, he can't orate or anything like that. I'm not saying that. But Roman just has never been a guy that you would say, yo, I need you to go kill 5 minutes in the ring. But if you look at the way Roman's promo segments are structured, right, there's a lot of help going on, right? He has Paul Heyman, and he has the Usos, and he has wait for it, acknowledge me, right? So like there's a structure that's designed for him to not just have to go out there and do, set up, punchline, that type of thing, right? So I've always said that Roman, the promos have not been like the strength of his game. And he came out with steam for Cody Rhodes on Monday night. Roman came out with a vengeance. He came for Cody's neck on Monday night. He told Cody, he told Cody, yo, you didn't want to do the Stardust thing, you ran away. He told him, you went and started a company. You couldn't even get over in your own company, which is not true, but still, it was a good line. And he said, you ran away from that. Then he said, you came here and you finally did get over, and your body quit on you when your little peck went pop. Yikes. Roman came. Roman had steam for Cody on Monday. And you can see on Cody's face, you can see Cody reacting to the jabs, man. You can see Cody reacting to the jabs. You can tell that a lot of it is hitting home. It's good stuff, man. It's been good stuff. Whoever's been writing this stuff, just, kudos to the people who have been writing this stuff. But then Cody fired back, right? Cody told Roman that Roman is going to wake up on April 3rd, which is a real one's birthday. It's a real brother's birthday on April 3rd. Shout out to everybody who knows. April 3rd is a real brother's birthday. One more time. Okay. All right. So anyway, Cody told Roman, you're going to have to wake up on April 3rd, and you're going to have to remember how it feels to lose. And then he told him, after you lose, everybody's going to leave you. He said, Jay's going to leave you. Then Jimmy's going to leave you. Then Solo's going to leave you. And then, by the way, he did something that I loved. He looked up at Solo and he said, you've been standing over there glaring at me all night. And he said, I remember being in your shoes, being flanked by the champion, and you think you're ready, but you're not ready. Woo! Yo, great line. A line like that, all of this has just made Cody feel like he is on Roman's level. Like, it does not feel like Cody is punching up at Roman. It feels like Cody is on the same level as Roman. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily agree with that, but it feels that way. Like, he talks to Roman with respect, but not with any doubt that he can beat him. You know what I mean? Cody isn't approaching this with any sort of doubt that he can beat Roman and take those titles from him. And then he said, and then Paul Heyman is going to become an advocate again, right? Referencing what he says he does for Brock Lesnar. And Roman got flustered. Roman left. Then, Solo and Cody started getting each other's face. And then I think they set up a match with Cody and Solo for this week coming up. And listen, man, let me say this. My kids love Cody. My kids are 5 and 7, right? So they're little, right? And when we watch wrestling together, they spend a lot of time saying to me, Dad, is this a good guy or a bad guy? With Cody, they've never asked that question. They see the way he's presented. They see the suit. They hear the passion in the promos. They see the reaction from the crowd, and they know he's the man. It's us adults who get caught up and get in our own way of enjoying the show, right? With our nitpicking apart of all the things we don't like. Oh, he was just handed the number 30 spot in the Rumble. He hasn't faced adversity. He's wearing the suit, and, he's too corporate. He's too polished, like all of that stuff. And it's times like that when I see the way that my kids, who are not like seasoned, wrestling watchers, right? Again, they're 5 and they're 7 years old. It's times like that that remind me that WWE knows what they're doing. They know what they're doing. It's not an accident that WWE has been around the longest. It's not an accident that they have the largest market share and the most unreasonable brand loyalty from their fans. It's because they get it. It's because they get it. They know how to speak to people's sensibilities, right? And so I've said all that just to say this: Cody is up next. Whether or not he wins at Mania is a question, but he's passing every test that they're putting him through. He stood toe to toe with Roman, he didn't look like he didn't belong, right? I remember a long time ago, Roman used to do promos next to Dean Ambrose, and Roman never quite looked like he was on the same level as Dean Ambrose. That wasn't the case when Cody stood next to Roman. And they've had Cody take over the role that Sami Zayn was occupying as the top antagonist to the Bloodline. And as hot as Sami was, there has been zero pushback from the crowd with Cody taking over that spot. They had Cody cut a promo by himself again when Roman wasn't there. And by the way, if you're going to be a top guy, there's going to be times when you have to work and promote a match by yourself. And Cody did that. He cut a great promo. No Heyman, no Roman. He carried the promo and he pushed the match forward by himself. So Cody is checking all the boxes. He is going to be the next WWE Undisputed Universal Champion. It is not a question of if, it's just a matter of when. If you are enjoying this content that we're doing here, please, please, please make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you get notified each and every time I drop some brand new fire content on this page. WWE recently uploaded a playlist of all the moments and segments that make up this Bloodline story. Now, the playlist is 2 hours long, but I got to tell you, it's completely worth it. It is completely worth it. I put it on there. I wasn't just sitting in front of my computer for 2 hours, but I actually was working out in my basement. You know, I was on the elliptical and I got like, you know, a little bench, little weight set, whatever. So I was, I had the playlist on in the background as I was doing my workout. And I got to tell you, my biggest takeaway going back and watching all the segments that got us up to this point, the Bloodline is Jey Uso's story. Say it again. The Bloodline is Jey Uso's story. Jey Uso is the one who put in the most work to get into the Bloodline. Jey Uso is actually the only one who spilled blood, his own blood, to get into the Bloodline. And anytime there was a fracture in the group, it was always centered around Jey. Whether he was the one walking off and leaving, or whether he was the one responsible for putting it back together, or whether he was the one who was trying to prevent the leak, Sami Zayn, right, from coming in and causing friction. It was always Jey who was at the center. Anytime you see Roman being the manipulative force, right, like, it's usually Jey. And you see Jey, who's been, you know, kind of repressing and second guessing his thoughts this whole time, right? Listen, this is Jey Uso's story. They didn't upload that playlist right now for no reason. We are coming to a major turning point in this story, and it's being hinted at in all the shows. Now, I gotta say this, like, I don't know whether or not Roman is going to lose the titles at WrestleMania, obviously, but this story does not depend on the titles. The titles are just a piece of what gives Roman the power and authority to manipulate Jey. But again, this is Jey's story. This is not Roman's story. This is the story of Jey. I think the end game is, you know, for Jey to end up being in charge of the Bloodline, or, you know, rise to being a main eventer. But if you pay attention, a couple of weeks ago when Jey was, you know, explaining in his promo, you know, why he betrayed Sami Zayn, you know, he talked about it and he talked about how hurt he was, but then he kind of switched it up. He said, I blame one person, and he paused and he said, I blame Sami Zayn. And I was like, okay. And then, on this past Monday, you saw Jimmy He was backstage. He was sitting on the couch next to Roman. He was saying how frustrated he was and how upset he was about being kept away from his brother and then being made to answer for it. And then you saw Roman get kind of a look on his face, and then Jay kind of paused and said, Jimmy paused and said, I blame Sami Zayn. I was like, oh. And then you even saw it a little bit with Solo in that segment where it was Roman and Cody and Solo was in the ring. Solo has been very kind of emotionless for the most part. But he didn't like when Roman was holding him back from attacking Cody Rhodes. Cody called out Solo face to face, and Solo wanted to handle his business. And Roman didn't like that. Roman didn't like that. Solo's getting ready to deliver the spike, and Roman jumped in, and he's like, no, call me. And then there was a video that actually surfaced of Roman and Solo kind of walking back to the dressing room after the show went off the air, and Roman's just like berating Solo the whole way. And I'm like, dog, they are putting all the little pieces together like a revolt is brewing. And for all the little hints that Jimmy and Jay dropped and the stuff I'm talking about with Solo, Sami Zayn has even said it outright. He told Jay, he said, yo, the thing you want to do more than anything is backstab Roman Reigns. Now, I got to say this. If you asked me to give a prediction, just looking at everything that we're seeing, I think Roman drops the titles at Mania. I do. I think Roman drops the titles at Mania. I think it's not that I think Cody Rhodes is so great or anything like that. I just think they have positioned Cody Rhodes as being the guy. I think they've positioned Cody Rhodes as being the guy. I think Roman has been going, nonstop carrying the company in every way possible for the past 3 years. And I think he could use a break. And I think he's going to take a nice little break after WrestleMania. I also think that after Roman drops the titles to Cody, I think we're going to get some sort of bloodline mutiny where I think the guys maybe come together and they get behind Jay, and Jay kind of usurps Roman as being the leader of the bloodline, going forward. So the end game in this story is Jay getting retribution on Roman Reigns for gaslighting him for the past 3 years. So that's what I think. I think that's where this whole bloodline story is headed. But let me know. We got 1 week to WrestleMania right now. 1 week to WrestleMania. So drop your predictions in the comments below. Okay, let me know what you think is gonna happen at WrestleMania. Okay, let me know what you think is gonna happen at WrestleMania. Real quick, I just want to give a big shout out to For You Wear and to the wrestling club. They're doing great things. Support the wrestling club. Those guys are really creating a great space for kids to learn about wrestling, which is whatever, but just having a fun, safe space for kids to enjoy themselves, work on their creativity, do something that's safe and fun. That's something I can always get behind. And so you can find the wrestling club on Twitter. Find those guys, support them, buy a t-shirt, buy a hoodie, buy something. And like I said, all that stuff is going to help kids, which is something we should all really be into. All right, so that's all we got for today. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow the show at Talkin Bout Pod on Twitter. You can tweet me, I tweet back. You can email questions to the show at talkinboutpod@gmail.com. If you really want to help the show, you want to do something great, tell a friend to tell a friend. Let's bring more people into the conversation. Until next time, I'm TW. Peace.